Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Beautiful day here in central Ontario, Canada, where I'm going to tell you about something that I recently came across that I got an opportunity to try out, and you can see it right here behind me. This is some accessories that go along with the pulling force. That pulling force is generated by a portable winch, and you probably have seen, if you've been around the channel for some time, I pull an awful lot on things, whether it's getting equipment unstuck or dragging a tree out of the woods. I'm pulling stuff all the time, and I often need something to pull with. Well, the good folks at Portable Winch Company, they gave me the opportunity here today to try out not only their accessories, but one of their portable winches. And if we check inside this case here, you'll see exactly what we're going to put into action. This right here is their portable winch, one of their portable winches. This is run off that Honda engine there. We'll talk a little bit more about that today. I'll talk about how this is a big upgrade for me, considering I'm used to those pesky steel cables, and how this is going to allow me to get that pulling job done remotely where I can't get the heavy equipment to. And that rope inside that bag is going to be what does all that for. So I'm glad you're here to join me. Let's dive into it. So inside this case is that portable winch that I was talking about. Now this model right here is the PCW 4000. You can see there the GX50, the Honda engine that powers it. That thing is what's going to do all the pulling force on that rope inside that bag. Now I have not even seen one of these before until recently, and so this is going to be the very first go for me for one of these things. Now in the past you probably have seen me use winches that have steel cables on it. Well, those are fine and dandy and they will pull, but this is a whole nother ball game. This thing is going to be a bit safer for me, and if you've seen a steel cable break before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This thing right here, that rope inside that bag, 10 millimeter, I think I've got like 300 feet of that rope. That is very low stretch rope. It's not a climbing rope. If that were to break, which is very unlikely, that's going to drop to the ground. A steel cable, if that thing breaks, you know where it's going. And if you're at the end of it, watch out. As I said, the portable winch here is run off that Honda engine, just a 4-stroke engine here, which is quite nice. You don't have to mix fuel or anything of that nature. So that engine powers in centrifugal clutch inside there. And what that allows is this drum to spin. Now the good thing that I found out with this unit is when the engine starts, that clutch does not engage that drum until you actually wrap the rope around it and start pulling on it with your hand. Then that drum will get engaged, and then you'll get down to pulling. Now in terms of overall pulling force, that thing is pulling 1 ton, 2,200 pounds, 1,000 kilograms in a straight line. Now if you wanted to bump that up, you can always circle back, double that force. You could circle back again, triple that force, and continue the process. Today I'm not sure whether we'll need to or not. You will see in just a minute when we head out further into the woods for a little action. But this thing in a straight line, 2,200 pound pull. Now on top of that drum here, you see this mechanism, and what this does is it allows the rope, after it wraps around the drum, to slide up through these little spring loaded cams. And what that'll do is that will allow the rope to stay in position. So that'll keep tension on the rope if you want it to. And that's kind of nice. You know, every once in a while I'm pulling on a tree and I want to help the tree down to the ground after I've cut it maybe. I want to maintain the tension. I don't want to release the tension, because if that tree springs back, that could be bad. So in certain circumstances, maybe even you're pulling a car out of a swamp, golf cart maybe, ATV, whatever the case may be, you don't want the tension let off that rope, because you don't want that sliding back down the hill. That's what that can play a part in. Some other things you'll notice around the back here, we have 2 hooks, and these hooks will have a sling attached to it. The sling will go around an anchor point, something like a tree here today. If you don't want to use a tree for an anchor point, you can always use some of the accessories like this unit, which slides over the ball on a hitch. Same thing here. And alternatively, maybe you want to use a tree. A tree is your anchor point, but you actually want to have it solid. So you can put that up against a tree, run the strap around the back of the tree, and then you have a solid mounting point for that winch to sit on. Now just sliding back across here, you'll also see some things that maybe you've seen on the channel before. Like, see the open face corner block? I've been using one of these for years here on the channel, and well, I'm going to continue using it here today as I put the rope through it. Now some other things here, they've got some carabiners, and obviously we have something like this which can grab onto your chain. Now down here there's another block we can use. Here's a block so you can run the rope down and back and run it through the same blocks, so get some additional pulling force that way. And then over here you see the nose cone, and once again that nose cone has been invaluable to me. I've been using this for years, and what this does, you'll notice the opening in the end of the nose cone. You can run your rope through it, and then presumably you've got a log or something similar on the other side. You lash around it, and then what happens when you pull it, this allows it so that the log doesn't dig into the ground. It also allows it, if you get into any maybe thick brush, maybe a stump or two, it will actually cause the log to navigate around it instead of getting hung up on it. That thing is very valuable to me. As I said, I've been using it for years. Now, getting back to the actual winch itself, I mentioned before we have the GX50, the Honda engine there. I like that it's a 4-stroke. You guys have all had the 2 strokes before on the end of the weed eaters, or whippersnippers as they call them, and well, that requires mixed fuel. This does not. No oil fuel mixture, straight gas. Very nice that way. And as I said, centrifugal clutch, the rope holder, we've got a 3-inch drum there. Inside this housing is actually a series of gears. It's oil bath gears. And besides that, we're sitting right around 26.5 pounds. And so when we talk about portability, that's it. You don't want to be slugging around something real heavy, especially when the weather turns sour and you've got, well, presumably you've got your heavy winter gear on. This thing is nice and light at 26.5 pounds, so you can sling it around without too much issue. Now over here we have a rope bag, and as I said, this is very low stretch rope. This is 10 millimeter diameter, 100 meter long, 300 feet give or take. And the rope bag's quite nice. After the rope is done for its job, you tougher sticker right back in the bag. You can do up the top, sort of like a camping bag, and put it on your back. And this one here, as I saw, has 2 handles to it, but it also has the backpack. So presumably you wear the backpack, you could carry the winch if you needed to, or if you're going on a piece of equipment, a golf cart or ATV, whatever that is, you can put your winch inside the case, and then all your accessories fit in there as well. I'll probably be using that quite a bit when I've got the equipment out, when I'm out riding to the place I'm going. And it just sits inside. You can see it's got a spot where it sits, and then everything else can sit around it here. And that's quite nice too, you know, if you have to leave it out overnight, whatever the case is, you can do so, and it's not going to be packed in with snow or ice, even getting rained on. So getting back to the reasons I'm so excited to try out this style of winch using a rope as opposed to a steel cable is the safety factor. That rope, as I mentioned, being low stretch, when it breaks, if it breaks, it's not going to come back at you. That was one of the concerns, and continues to be one of the concerns of steel cable. And you've seen me use other winches before, and they've worked out just fine, but there was always still that one unknown, and that Capstan Winch is that one unknown. I've never used one of these before, and so we're going to see how this compares to things I have used before. One thing I am noticing, it is highly portable with that 26.5 pound weight, and so it's not going to be too much of an issue to move things around, and I think that's going to be one of the nice things. The other nice thing is that has an infinite amount of rope you can put through it. If you have sections of rope lashed together and they're a mile long, that's fine. That'll continue to pull it, and that'll continue to apply that pulling force, the maximum pulling force, all the way through. If you know anything about drum winches, maybe the winch holds the cable. The force that's applied on that cable, the pulling force, is actually greatest when most of the cable on the drum is out. That force gets reduced the more cable you bring in. That's not the case with this, and so I'm looking forward to that consistent force all the way from the beginning right to the end of whatever I'm pulling. Anyways, without further ado, we're heading to the woods. We're going to try this thing out, and hopefully this becomes a staple here on the channel. I have high hopes, and well, things are looking good so far. Here we go. One of the things I'm finding I really like is I can leave the majority of the rope in the bag. I only pull out what I'm going to use, and I'll pull out just a little bit of extra just so I can wrap it around here, and then the rest of the rope just sort of sits there. Now, starting this thing pretty straightforward. 4-stroke engine like this. If you know Honda, you know it's a good engine. More or less all you got to do down here, the on off, turn it to on. There's your choke switch. Choke all the way up, all the way down for choke off. I'll just let that warm up for a few minutes, and then as you can tell here, this is not spinning. The centrifugal clutch prevents it from spinning until I wrap the rope around it and start pulling on it just a little. We'll see that in a minute. So from what I gathered, they say 3 to 4 wraps around here, 4 wraps around the drum for maximum force. They also say that as the rope ages, get some grit in there and things of that nature, it'll actually create more friction on the drum and allow for even greater force, at least a better grip on the drum. There we go. Now notice right here, there's the throttle. So as I pull that, it's going to start to pull on the rope. Now also notice where I weave the rope through. There's these little pieces down here which keep the rope as far in towards the gearbox as possible. And you'll also notice here we have the grabbers that are going to grab the rope and prevent it from releasing tension. So let's just tighten things up here a little. And that's wild. I'm barely... pretty wild. I didn't think it'd be like that. I got to get out of the way though. This should be in line with what we're pulling. That's kind of neat. You just let off, it holds it there. I like it. I had no idea it was going to have that ability. I started leaning into it and not pulling all that much, but as I leaned into it, it really gave it the old oomph. I'm just going to let the tension off and try to pull it over that way, away from my trail. And I think all I do is unlatch it from these 2 little locking cams like that. Yeah, there we go. That's pretty slick. Okay. Don't have a lot of options for anchor trees. I don't really need a big anchor for this. I'm just going to topple it over now. pretty slick. Well, there we have it, folks. If you wanted to see the basic setup I was using, obviously the rope attached to the winch there. And then I've got this piece the rope actually ties to, and that allows me to run this carabiner through it. This short section of chain comes with this hook. And one thing I found with this hook, which was hooked up to the choker chain, was I really like this part. I like the part where it locks in place. So once you hook the chain up and you walk back to where the winch is, when you start pulling on it, the choker chain can't fall out of the slot. I've had that happen before, so that's quite nice that way. Now this carabiner, when I first hooked it up, I thought I've never used a carabiner to pull weight before, but this thing is rated 65 kilonewtons. And so that's a heck of a force right there. And you can see this comes off this way. And the thing with this carabiner, which is also reassuring, you have this, which will lock it in place so nothing can bump it open by mistake. So that's that. And one thing I'll mention, just for a first go around using rope, that is something completely different than what I'm used to. I'm used to weight. And so when I'm pulling out a steel cable or I'm dragging chain, traditionally it's very heavy. Every once in a while, the winch, you got to give it a good pull to get it through the brush, and all that's heavy. This is so light, you almost forget that you have the cable with you, or the rope in this case. So that's something I'm liking. I also like how, knowing me who doesn't like to wear gloves, I'm also liking how I don't have to fear getting one of those strands of steel cable into my hand. This stuff is nice and soft. So overall, first experience, very positive for me. I can see a lot of applications for that. Anywhere like right here where I can't get heavy equipment, that thing will be coming along with me. 26.5 pounds, you can't go wrong. You throw the rope on your back and you can pull down something in a hurry. Now, one thing I liked about this unit that some of you had seen me doing was untensioning the rope. You all know that if you tension up a cable on something, every once in a while it can be a dog to get that cable off the drum. Oftentimes it goes in under itself and can be a real bear. And so this was real nice, having the ability to detension things by simply taking the rope and pulling it like that, and then it comes out from underneath of these. It's no longer tensioned, and I can just allow the rope to go off the drum as it needs. So that was quite nice that way. I also found that throttle control there, it had great feel to it. So at the start, I was just easing into it to see how much force I had to apply. As I noticed I needed more force, I just pulled a little harder on the rope. That opened up the throttle even more. And well, there's the result. It pulled it right down. So first experience, it's a bit of an eye-opener. You don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know much. Trying out a rope pull for the very first time has definitely changed my opinion on what's possible. Having that portability, I think, is going to make things all the better. And having that lightweight is certainly going to make it more apt to come out in the woods with me. If something's super heavy, I might take it out in the woods when it's convenient. But when it's not convenient, there's 3 feet of snow, I'm pulling a sleigh behind me. If it's heavy, it's not going with me. In this case, being nice and light with the rope, the 26.5 pounds, as I mentioned, it's coming along for the ride. You'll see that in action in the winter a little bit more. Anyways, that's going to do it for me here today. If you own one of these, give me your feedback down below. I want to know how to make this thing operate best for me. And if you don't own one of these and you have any questions, I'll try my best to answer it. Down below in the comments is where that should go. As always, do me that big favor. If you did like this video, make sure you subscribe. Don't forget to like the video and come back next time. See you then.